It's Thursday, June 18, 2020, and you've tuned into the Rebel News live stream. Now, as you know, folks, usually the big boss man himself, Ezra Levent, is sitting in this chair, but every Tuesday and Thursday, Ezra needs some extra time to work on that super important big project I keep hinting about, and you won't want to miss that one, let me tell you. So, in his place, it's me, David Menzies, and my lovely co-host, Sheila Gunn-Reid. How you doing there, Sheila, out in Alberta?
It's good. You know, it's been crazy weather. I don't know what it's like out there for you, but we'll have like 2 days of like relatively seasonable warmth, and then it's like 4 days of rain. So the crops are drowning in the field, but yeah, I mean, you can't fight the weather, so.
Well, I'll tell you, Sheila, today it is one of those typical Southern Ontario weather days. It is hot, it's humid. You know, it's so hot. This is where you say, how hot?
How hot is it, David?
I saw a dog chasing a cat, and they were both walking.
I regret asking how hot it was.
When you think about it, that's really a funny line. But Sheila, Mr. Producer, is saying, no, it's not. I'm laughing. I'm not waiting for you guys anymore. And once I deliver these kind of golden nuggets, I'm not waiting for you trolls to dump on it any longer. But anyways, at this point, I think your job, Sheila, is to tell our lovely audience what it is we're attempting to do here and how this whole live stream works.
As I said on Tuesday, who even knows what we're doing anymore? Ezra hosts the Monday, Wednesday, Friday live stream. We've actually expanded our live stream coverage during the pandemic, while the other networks have basically condensed their news coverage, and in CBC's case, they quit doing local news altogether. Yeah. At Rebel News, there's so much to cover that we decided that we would give our viewers extra coverage from us. So what used to be the Friday show, Battleground, is now the daily live stream. However, I think Friday is still called Battleground. We don't have a name for what we do here. But it gives us a chance to interact with each other, gives David a chance to try out his terrible jokes on me, gives poor producer Justin another hour of suffering every day, and it gives you a chance, you, the viewer, a chance to interact with each other in the live chat. I can see that out of the corner of my eye. Gets pretty lively on there. It's funny, you see friendships forming in there. It's kind of sweet. But it also gives you at home a chance to support the work that we do here at Rebel News through what's called a super chat. Yeah. You can throw a little money into the pot there, and what that will do is highlight your question or comment, or if there's a topic you'd like David or I to discuss. If you throw some money in there, YouTube takes some, but we get the most of it, so you know it's a good deal. And it'll highlight it, and we'll read it, and it gives you a chance to support us completely willingly. We're not like the CBC. We don't take Justin Trudeau's money, and we wouldn't take it even if he tried to give it to us, because we're fiercely independent, and we rely on the support of viewers like you at home.
And believe me, folks, on behalf of Sheila, Ezra, everybody here at the Rebel News team, we know this is maybe the worst time to ask for donations, but if you are able to, we so appreciate that. So let's get right down to business. Sheila, our beloved colleague Cian Bexley, he was in Toronto to cover the French language debate of the Conservative leader hopefuls, and we got a real whopper with Peter MacKay. I mean, Cian experienced, maybe Mr. Producer can dig this up, from January, my encounter with Peter MacKay, where I was simply asking him a question. We can run it after the Cian video, Mr. Producer, about his position on free speech after Ezra was being grilled by those government bureaucrats for having the temerity to write a negative book about Justin Trudeau. And will you see, if you haven't seen it already, folks, will you see how Peter MacKay answered that question? That was a softball for any Conservative leader to knock out of the ballpark to the 500 level, but that didn't quite happen. So speaking of self-inflicted wounds, let's run the video of Cian Bexley trying to scrum Peter MacKay last night.
Hi, Peter. Would I be able to ask you a few questions?
After the debate, he's doing immediate bill.
We're just wondering if you, Derek Sloan talked to us as well. We're just wondering if you could answer a few questions. You've been dodging us throughout this whole campaign. We're wondering if you could tell us, do you think the RCMP is systemically racist?
No, you're doing immediate bill.
You're laughing about dodging rebel media. Can I get your assistant's name?
Yeah, I'm Chisholm Pache.
Laughing.
I am indeed.
Peter, could you tell us, is the RCMP systemically racist? Peter, on World Milk Day, you sort of giggled in a picture with you drinking milk. I'm wondering if you're just trying to recreate the failed policies.
A few times.
I'm just wondering, why are you trying to recreate the failed policies of Andrew Scheer?
After the debate, yeah, I believe you're accredited. Not sure why accredited entertainer.
Peter, sorry, why are you trying to recreate? Why are you trying to recreate failed policies of Andrew Scheer?
3.
Peter, why aren't you answering basic questions?
He's going to.
Are you scared?
Oh yeah, scared. That's right.
I know.
You're going to do immediate bill.
I'm really not interested in you. I'm interested in Peter.
And we're not interested particularly in you.
What a joke.
Oh, what a joke indeed. And you know, Sheila, you're in the morning meeting today, and Kian gave that anecdote. I think it'll appear in a future video. He, at one point, as they were literally running around the hotel and Peter was ducking into bathrooms and going up escalators. I think Mr. Producer has some of that, including, do you have the quote, Mr. Producer, when Kian asks Peter, what are you doing? Oh, okay. So at one point, and this is the one question I think Peter MacKay answered, Kian Bexley says, Peter, what are you doing? And Peter MacKay says this, what does it look like I'm doing? I'm winning. Now, Sheila, if that's winning, I'd hate to see what losing looks like.
You know, though, good for Kian, because I'll never forget the first time that I made a government staffer, bureaucrat, politician flee to a washroom and lock themselves in a washroom. You know, your first time, you never forget it. I was in Morocco at the UN Climate Change Conference, and I was trying to ask an Indigenous chief from Manitoba a question about why he was even purporting to represent the all Indigenous people, I guess, in Canada. But in particular, why is he bad-mouthing the oil sands, thus advocating against the jobs of, you know, other Indigenous people? And I simply asked his staffer, who paid your way here? I.e., if it's the Canadian taxpayers, you need to answer these questions. And if you're on the payroll of the likes of Tides or Forest Ethics or whatever, well, I think people need to know that when they're hearing your specific opinions. I asked her, who paid your way here? She ran and locked herself in a bathroom and then went to the UN and told on me. And that was the harassment that got me banned from future UN events. And so it's funny now to see Peter MacKay, the guy who wants to be the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, acting like a low-level anti-oil sands bashing press secretary. It's fascinating to see. And
Sheila, if I can just interject here about, and I guess I'm giving intelligence to the enemy, but anyone who's running away from a journalist, whether you're in business, government, what have you, the washroom is the worst hiding place, because almost every bathroom I've ever encountered in a public space, there's one way in and there's one way out. It's the same door. So we'll just wait outside. You got to come out sometime.
Well, and Jason Kenney takes Kian's question, and it drives the rest of the media bonkers, like completely insane. They talk about it for days and days and days. Like it's the worst thing to ever have taken a question from a journalist who doesn't think like them. And it's very revealing of the actual media party. You could see it in action, right? But Jason Kenney takes Kian's questions. Kian's questions are hard. They're not softballs. And they are questions that the people want to know.
Exactly.
Not questions the media wants answers to. They're people's questions.
But
and Jason Kenney answers them, and he handles them well. Because if you know your stuff, every single question is a chance to showcase how smart you are. And I guess old Pete McKay isn't confident in his own smarts.
It is astonishing. And what I find sad, Sheila, if you recall, shortly after the October federal election, Peter McKay came out like gangbusters. That incredible quote where he said Andrew Scheer got a breakaway on an empty net and missed. And I thought, wow, no fancy mamby-pamby language beating around the bush. But he went from that to he won't even take any kind of questions. And I alluded to the fact that in January, I think it was Peter McKay's first public event at the Old Mill here in Toronto. I went there and I just wanted to ask him a free speech question. Again, something that anyone who runs for the Conservatives should adore to answer. And it was based on what was very much in the news at the time, Ezra getting interrogated by those bureaucrat bullies for the Libranos book. And here's what I encountered, if we have it, Mr. Producer. The video of me at the Old Mill trying to ask Peter McKay a simple question.
I just got to see if I can ask him.
No question. No question, sir.
You guys are preventing me from interviewing. I just want to ask one question, not even an interview.
There's no media.
It's a question on freedom of speech.
You're welcome to get a photo. There's no problem.
So under Peter McKay, it'll be the same as Andrew Scheer, that the rebel is not allowed to be here?
Here, aren't you? Excuse me.
Here, but I'm going to ask a question. Yes. Hi, Mr. McKay. How you doing? Just want to ask you, sir, what do you feel about Ezra Levant being interrogated by the elections commissioner?
Anybody being interrogated, including right now. So,
but this is a very important freedom of speech issue, Mr. McKay. I don't even know why it hasn't been raised in the House by your Conservative colleagues. Do you have a comment on that?
well, you should talk to those Conservative colleagues. I'm not in the House of Commons, so I don't have an opportunity to raise it.
What is your opinion of the elections commissioner going after Ezra Levant simply for writing a book during an election campaign about a prime minister?
Well, I don't have any of the evidence. I don't have any of the information other than what I've read. So we'll see.
You haven't heard about this?
I have heard about it just briefly, but I don't have any of the facts.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, I've been shocked. Okay. Well, there you have it, folks.
And then I'm given the bum's rush as usual. Sheila, I mean, when he said, I feel like I'm being interrogated right now, by who? Me, the lovable one? I'm just asking a simple question. And listen, what he could have said, just in case he wasn't aware of the story, and I find that very hard to believe that he wasn't aware of that story. I bet he watched that video. He could have said, David, if what you're saying is true, that could have been the preface, then I think it's despicable that bureaucrats would further infringe upon our freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of the press, and if elected prime minister, I would make sure that the bureaucrats would never do that to any author, regardless of what book they're writing. Bingo! That's your answer. Instead, I heard a little about it and I feel like I'm being interrogated right now. This guy wants to be prime minister?
Yeah, Jason Kenney remarked about what was happening to me with Alberta's elections commissioner when they wanted to interrogate me, and then I secretly recorded them. He remarked on that. He remarked that it was outrageous that an author would be interrogated for an illegal book. I mean, there's a couple things going on there. If Peter McKay didn't actually know, which I don't believe, but if he didn't actually know about what happened to Ezra, then you are not in tune with the issues enough that matter to Conservatives.
Yes.
Sorry,
Good point.
You're applying for the wrong job. But if you did know, and then you couldn't formulate an opinion about it, that even if you don't like Ezra, because like him, we're not for everybody. But that doesn't matter, because you're not supposed to care about your personal opinion of me when you're defending my rights. And so even if you couldn't get past his emotions for Ezra, to defend Ezra's right to free speech and the free press, that's also very indicative of the kind of conservative he is. I actually am not even sure that he is passionate about having this job. I just think feels like he's kind of entitled to it, sort of like Justin Trudeau was. I mean, when you think about who he's talking to, journalist-wise, well, he speaks to the Unifor journalists, no problem. Those are the Unifor journalists who ran an ad saying that they were the resistance.
The resistance,
to Andrew Scheer. When, you look at that ad, and the only resistance I see there is in their waistbands and to smiling, because what a surly looking bunch. And then we've got CBC. We've got CBC, who's actively a nuisance plaintiff in a lawsuit against the Conservative Party of Canada. Those are the people that Peter MacKay thinks are perfectly fine to talk to, but somehow Cian Bexty is too repulsive. Cian's not going to ask you any gotcha questions. He's asking you, do you want to defund the police? That's a really easy Conservative question. No.
And Sheila, you've nailed it. That is the unspoken agenda. That is the unspoken strategy of the Peter MacKay camp. Much like, or exactly like Andrew Scheer, we're worried that if we speak to the Rebel, what will the mean girls in the media party think? The Globe and Mail, the CBC, the Toronto Star. Oh, they won't think anything other than they still hate you. I mean, Scheer courting those cats, what did it do? They were trying to dredge up anything, such as his falsified credentials in the insurance brokerage business, such as him being a dual citizen, and like really minor C-level scandals, if they're even scandals. So it didn't curry any favor with them, and of course he lost. And Peter MacKay himself said, when he originally got into this race, that Andrew Scheer missed an open net on a breakaway. Well, you know what, Peter MacKay? You broke your nose going over the bench by going face first into the ice. You never even got your stick on the puck, brother. So, the reason you would follow the game plan of a loser is loser to the nth degree on steroids. In any event, we have some super chats, don't we, Sheila?
We do, but there's something else about that debate that I sort of want to get to, because it irked me and it irritated me as a Westerner. When he said to O'Toole, and look, I really don't have skin in the game. I want, who I want to win? The person who will defend free speech, mind their own business, and cut government spending. So far, Peter MacKay's not that guy. He's not that guy. And he has zero respect for the West. And if he wins this leadership, you are going to see Western separatism just ignite even more. And I'll tell you why. He said to O'Toole last night, and on some level, I think this speaks to just how petty Peter MacKay is and how long he holds a grudge, because he seems to really not like Jason Kenney. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that Jason Kenney was Harper's right-hand guy, and he was the fixer. He would go into these portfolios and just clean them up and fix them. He went into immigration. He went into labor. He would go into these problematic, liberal-infested portfolios and fix them and conservatism them up. And he was really seen as Harper's successor. However, he came to rescue Alberta from the NDP. And I think because of that, because MacKay lost to Harper when the parties joined, and he wasn't made Harper's right-hand man, rather it was Jason Kenney, I think he's still resentful of that, because he said during the debate last night to O'Toole, "You're always angry. The same thing goes for your friend, Mr. Kenney."
Wow. I think you're absolutely right, Sheila. And why bring up Mr. Kenney in this? As he did, that does give credence to your hypothesis that he is spiteful and holding a grudge from years ago. And he doesn't have the best interests of this country at heart. It's all about what's in it for Peter MacKay. In any event.
Does he think that we don't have something to be angry about here in Alberta? After 150 years of just completely getting the shaft, we should just shut up and be a little more chipper while we're getting the shaft? Give me a break. Between this remark that we should be a little more smiley about it, and calling those Alberta boys who busted up those rail blockades vigilantes instead of just people upholding the law when the police wouldn't. He is very out of touch with Western issues. And you know what? The Western MPs and some senators who are still supporting McKay after what he said last night, they absolutely need their heads checked. They do.
I agree.
Okay, and now I'll get to those super chats that you insisted that I'm getting to. Okay, sorry. Okay. We've got one from Kian Superfan Kane Enmark. Says he gives us $5 Canadian, and he said Kian is the communist hunter. David is the street racer. Love that video from yesterday. Love you guys. That was such a great video, and I thought the thumbnail was great too. It was like the side of your face when you're driving, all seriously. I recommend you head on over to our YouTube channel and check that out after you're done watching.
And Mr. Producer has it lined up, so we'll get to the street racing event that the viewer is alluding to, folks. It was surreal.
What a crazy video. Oh, that's not a super chat. That's a note from Justin, the next one. Do you see us calling? Yes, I did. We've got one from SA, gives us $25 Canadian. Thank you very much. What is your opinion about Jagmeet Singh getting ejected from the House of Commons? Love you, Sheila and David. Oh, well, thank you. That's kind. And then I'll just read the next two super chats because they don't have anything attached to them, and I think then we'll talk about that. Wonder Granada, what a great name, gives us $5 Canadian. I don't see a super chat. And Wayne Swiddick gives us $2 Canadian, no super chat. David, did you watch that yesterday?
Oh, about Jagmeet? Yes. Well, this is the trend du jour, isn't it, Sheila? Calling people racist. And, I don't get Jagmeet Singh. That campaign he led in the last election, look at the results, that was a failure. And yet all the media coverage was on the same narrative. Oh, didn't Jagmeet Singh impress us all in the debates? No, because who cares about the debates? I'm interested in, the results in terms of getting seats. And in fact, we don't have to go back that many years ago where the NDP, incredibly, was the official opposition, Sheila. So now he calls the Bloc MP a racist, and I have absolutely zero doubt this was all staged. He knew he'd be called on the carpet, and having him being removed, well, he'll just play this into the narrative of look at the man, look at the white privileged House of Commons kicking out the visible minority party leader. You see how systemic it is? Give me a break. He should apologize for that unless he's got hardcore evidence to prove what he said. And but it was political theater, and it's dangerous, Sheila, because I don't want to see our country go down this road where if you choose a different sandwich from the other party, you're a racist somehow. So that's my thoughts.
It was the perfect example of you disagree with me, so you are a racist.
Yeah.
It was exactly that. And then he leaves the House of Commons. Then he goes on, I think it was CBC, and said, I was angry before, but now I'm just sad and I'm choking up. Like he was literally choking up. It was pathetic to watch, actually. It was, as a woman, I don't want to see a guy get that emotional and get emotional simply because somebody held a different opinion than you. As a woman, it did nothing for me. Like, it was not good at all. Guys, don't do that. Girls don't care for that. Yeah,
that's true. You hear this, women don't mind men revealing their emotions. It's okay to cry, but when a guy actually does cry, and I'm thinking of crybaby Patrick Brown when he was ousted. It's awkward. It's painful. Nobody wants to see that, unless of course something like the Toronto Maple Leafs win a Stanley Cup, and they've been trying to do so for more than half a century. I might shed a tear then, but other than that, no.
Well, going back to Jagmeet Singh, the worst part of all of this is that flighty, emotional, intolerant person actually holds the balance of power in the House of Commons. He decimated his party. He's nearly bankrupted the party. But Justin Trudeau has to move even further to the left, if that's even possible, because he relies on Jagmeet Singh to keep him in power in a minority parliament. So, that, I think, is the most dangerous thing of all, is that this person who can't control his emotions, who thinks that if you disagree with him, you're a racist, which is like the parody of the left, but he's a walking human parody of himself.
Yep.
He has to drag Justin Trudeau even further to the left, and Justin Trudeau's willing to do it, all to hang on to power.
Well,
Why do you think I want to leave? Why do you think Alberta wants to leave?
how much further can Justin Trudeau go that way in terms of wokeness? I mean, we had Prime Minister Blackface take a knee last week in Ottawa, but he's the Prime Minister. You know,
I know.
it made no sense, right? But carry on,
He's
Sheila.
the system.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got one from Mr. Superhero, gives us $3 Canadian, says give a fist bump. We got one from Proud Boys Calgary, gives us $5 Canadian. Hello,
you.
Justin. If Shear missed a breakaway on an empty net, then McKay is scoring on his own net. Yes, exactly. Daily reminder: the CCP must be destroyed. Yeah, he's that guy who gets the rebound and then runs down and does a layup on his own net.
Yeah,
It's
we're
so
talking.
bad.
Google this one. I think it was Steve Smith, the defenseman for the Edmonton Oilers, banked the puck off Grant Fuhr's leg from behind the net, and Calgary advanced to the Stanley Cup final that year, I believe. Shocking.
Yeah, that's McKay.
That's Peter McKay. He's our Steve Smith.
We've got $2 Canadian from AA, says, please resurrect the climate Barbie moniker. I've never retired it, but she moved over to infrastructure. So now she's Builder Barbie. With her hard hat on backwards.
Are you serious? Did she do that?
Yeah, no, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I just anticipate it. Like when Rachel Notley wore her cowboy hat on backwards to the Calgary Stampede. Yeah. And that's how few people in the NDP were in touch with Western heritage and Western culture, that you couldn't wear the official hat of Alberta. Nobody knew that you were wearing it wrong. Nobody around you knew that you were wearing it wrong.
Oh, gee, how sad.
Yes. We've got a super chat from Wayne Swiddick, gives us $20 Canadian, says, Rebel, please bring back Faith Goldie. Many of us really liked her. I think Ezra has been pretty clear several times about why we parted ways with Faith and how that went. And I think that is definitely a permanent decision. I know that she was liked by very many people. But on the other hand, I think we've done great work since, and I think all of our work stands on its own, and I think you'll find somebody around here that you like equally as much if you just look and watch the work that we do. We've got one from Dragon Joe, gives us $5 Canadian. NDP is a terrifying party that has ruined any province they were in charge of. Yeah, no arguments for me or Saskatchewan or Manitoba or I guess in Ontario, Ray Days. I remember my cousins telling me about Ray Days. Jagmeet Singh looks fine, but boy, oh boy, I don't want his party federally. Yeah. Yeah. However, I don't think they have enough money in the war chest to even run a decent campaign if the writ were dropped anytime soon.
Another failure, by the way, which I'm sure Jagmeet Singh will now base on racism. That's why you're not contributing to the NDP. And they're in big trouble, I understand, in terms of the party coffers. But it's racism. Yeah. What else could it be, Sheila?
Yeah, if people aren't donating, it's probably because of the NDP racism. I saw, when you see an open civil war unfolding at the NDP convention on live TV because their BDS motions didn't go far enough to demonize Israel, yeah, maybe it's the NDP racism that turns everybody off and not the racism external being focused at the NDP.
You know, and another thing that has to be said about the NDP is that right now, this modern NDP is a two-headed dragon. It is a divided party, Sheila. There are the NDP classic kind of guys that are about unionized jobs, laying pipeline, for example, infrastructure, right? That's what the NDP was all about. It was the lunch bucket brigade. Then you've got the downtown Toronto, downtown Vancouver NDP types, the cats that go with their laptops to Starbucks and whine all day about social justice, and that's represented by their leader right now, Jagmeet Singh. And and who are, by the way, anti-pipeline, that have nothing to do with the blue-collar base of the NDP. And so this party, I think, is tearing itself apart.
Well, yeah, and I don't think the NDP has a blue collar base anymore. It has forced unionization in Canada, and so they catch those people. But those people, I think, generally vote Conservative. At least the blue collar folks out here. I hear a lot of people pissing and moaning about having to be a part of a union like Unifor when they don't want to. They don't want to fund political interests that are counter to their own.
Exactly.
I know a lot of people who work for like civilian RCMP, and they have that horrible, I think it's the CPAC union. And they're the ones that have, in Ottawa, they wore the Harper Hates Me button. And the woman that I know who's in that union, she's the staunchest Conservative. She can't tolerate her union, but she doesn't have a choice. And that's why I'm so for right to work legislation.
Me too.
Pissed Off Steve gives us $5, and I don't see a super chat. The Great Awakening gives us $5. Jagmeet Singh's real name I think it should say isn't even Jagmeet Singh. He's banned from India, deep state agent like Trudeau. I don't even think Trudeau's smart enough to be a deep state agent. I just think he's stupid. And Therese Pollard gives us $2 Canadian, and she says, keep up the good work. Thank you very much. And if anybody just jumped on and they want to know what we're doing here, what I was just doing was reading super chats, and that's a way to support the work we do. You can give a little donation, and it'll highlight your comment or question, and we'll read it. And it's how we keep the lights on around here, because we don't take any of Justin Trudeau's bribe money. Also, let me take this opportunity to ask you to both subscribe to our YouTube channel and ring the little notification bell, because we generally use that notification alert anytime we're going live. And I think some of our live coverage is some of the best stuff that we do. And I'm not just saying that because we're live right now, but I am also just saying that because we're live right now.
And Sheila, before we leave the French debate of the Conservative would-be leaders, I want to throw this question out to you and our viewers, because this seems to be getting the predominant chat in the Twitterverse, and it's basically people mocking all the candidates for how poor their French was. And I would just like to throw a question out there. Is it really that essential that we have a prime minister that's fluently bilingual? Justin Trudeau speaks French and English perfectly, and look what we got there in Ottawa. I would argue, and by the way, I'm not picking sides here. If it was a unilingual French prime minister, but it was policies I agreed on, I'm okay with that. Of course, I would wish that he could also speak English. I'll be absolutely honest. But it's all about, kind of like the Starkist tuna marketing line from decades ago. Starkist doesn't care about tunas with good taste. Starkist cares about tunas that taste good. And the point I'm just trying to say is that I would like to judge prime ministers or would-be prime ministers on what they stand for, and I think the language is irrelevant right now. I think bilingualism in Canada means that if you have a French mother tongue, you are entitled to government services in French. Okay, but it doesn't say that a prime minister must be fluently bilingual. And I did a little research, Sheila. After it's English first in Canada, French, and then the next three most popular languages in this country are Mandarin, Cantonese, and Punjabi. And I would argue that those numbers in those demographics might one day exceed French speakers. So again, I don't know what your opinion is on this, but whether unilingual English, unilingual French, I judge a leader by his or her policies, period.
Well, yeah, and I saw Leslyn Lewis remark in the after-debate press conference that she's only been learning French for the last 2.5 months. So for her to have the tenacity to take that into a debate, like a make-or-break debate, it's pretty gutsy. Yep. And it's pretty obvious that she's working pretty hard. Like, try learning a second language just when you're doing your regular job. But she's trying to learn a second language while she's doing a regular job and running to be the prime minister of this country. So that's much respect for that. But at the end of the day, I think her French is probably better than a lot of separatist English. And I really, honestly, I could care less if she speaks a word of French any more that I could care less than someone who spoke French, but like you say, had the same policy initiatives that I think are great. If that person didn't speak a word of English, I don't care, because at the end of the day, I think the cost of an interpreter is a lot less than keeping Justin Trudeau in power.
100%. Well said, Sheila. And perhaps we should move on to, we were talking about that surreal car chase, sort of. But I'm on a mission right now, folks, where I'm hunting the hunters in Brampton. Brampton, whereas everybody else is relaxing the restrictions due to the Wuhan virus on the economy, whereas it seems that most jurisdictions are scaling back on the coronavirus cops running out and giving otherwise law-abiding citizens $880 fines. Brampton is on a jihad. Brampton is, it is absolutely incredible. Last week, it was the period of June 2nd to June 8th, those days, 127 coronavirus tickets handed out to teenagers playing soccer or cricket, to people in parking lots, to citizens of Brampton in their own backyards, and that adds up to $112,000. So I just want to confront one of these Brampton bylaw officers and really politely ask him why he's being so bloody mean to his citizens. And I should say that Brampton, the reason why they're so efficient is they have a contract with Paladin Security, and these security guards act as paid professional snitches. So they actually stake out parks. They don't have ticket writing ability, but they call bylaw, and bylaw, like Batman and Robin in the Batmobile, rush to the park and slap those citizens with a fine. So that's why they're so bloody efficient in the first place. They've got this network of spies. Anyways, I almost got a bylaw officer of Brampton on camera yesterday, but it was not to be. Here's the video evidence. How do you like that? We are on day 3 of hunting the hunters. By that I mean bylaw enforcement in the city of Brampton, aka the Flower City. We're going to see where he's off to. Maybe he's on a call. Now he's leaving the park, and if you might recall our previous report from last week, the city of Brampton has actually hired, oh, and by the way, he's doing, it's a 50 zone, I'm doing 80, and I can barely keep up with him. So the Brampton bylaw isn't exactly following the Highway Traffic Act laws, it would appear, but I guess they're special. Oh, look at this. Oh boy. Yeah, great. Red light runner 2. Maybe we can catch him. Oh, and change lanes without signaling. I could go on and on. Talk about, and changing lanes again without signaling. One law for me and one law for thee. Yeah, so what do we, if I was a police officer, let's see, we have street racing because you're exceeding the speed limit by 50 kilometers. He was doing over 100, Sheila, in a 50 zone.
Oh, for sure.
And okay, it might be borderline the red light thing. Some people were saying it was amber originally, but amber, you see, here in the GTA, Sheila, we have a unique interpretation of the Highway Traffic Act. All the drivers here are thinking amber means to put the pedal to the metal and blow through that intersection. When you read the law, it means stop. It means that's when you begin stopping. Yep. Clearly not that. And then 2 examples of changing lanes without signaling. Isn't it amazing that this guy going to a park, looking for youngsters getting on playground equipment, looking for people going to the beach volleyball courts, which don't even have nets, of course, is slapping them with 880 tickets, and look at that reckless and I would argue borderline dangerous driving, of a city vehicle. That was just astonishing. I never expected we were going to get something like that on camera, Sheila.
Yeah, way more dangerous than kids playing outside. And getting tickets for $880. You know what the city of Brampton should do? They should hire security to watch their bylaw officers to make sure that they're following the law. And when they see them breaking the law, they should just call the actual police to come down and ticket them for reckless driving or, running a light or whatever these guys are doing when they think nobody's watching. But yeah, these are the guys that are out there power tripping and ticketing kids for riding skateboards. I mean, it's just outrageous, but also unsurprising, completely unsurprising that that's the kind of person that would ticket a kid.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know how that works. If you do they confine the child until the parent comes along, and then they issue the fine there? Because I don't know how these people interact with minors. I'd love to see. I'd love to capture that on camera as well. But what a terrible example. If you're going out there literally nailing people with almost $1,000 fine for just getting out of the house, just getting some rays, having some fun in the sun, and then you go onto the streets of the jurisdiction that you're patrolling and you do that. I think that's an absolute disgrace. And they say deeds speak. Well, look at those deeds by that driver. That was just terrible, Sheila.
Yeah, Godspeed to these people if they do try to confine my children. Those little maniacs will turn on you so fast. They're like a pack of wolves. Okay, we've got more super chat.
Okay.
We got another one from Pissed Off Steve. Apparently he had a problem with his earlier super chat and probably is responsible for that name that he uses. He said would not allow him to talk. I assumed that the super chat wouldn't take his message. We've got one from Denis Paymont. Just received my Rebel News bumper sticker. 6 to 8 weeks now I've been waiting. My Make Canada Great Again hat still stuck at the Quebec border. I don't know. I'll check in to that. Actually, I'll send it a quick email to our person who is in charge of the store. I'm suspecting it's probably a Canada Post issue. I've been waiting forever for a Hacksaw Jim Duggan t-shirt, and I just got a letter or like an email saying that it'll be delayed. So they're trying to tell me my Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Wow.
They're trying to tell me it's non-essential. Excuse me? It's essential to me.
What a blast from the 80s. What attracts you to Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Sheila?
He's got a 2x4. I mean, he's so wonderfully blue collar and crazy. I think that's why I like him. Like he's he's got it. He's named after a hand tool. He's got a 2x4. He's just great. He's got everything.
So if Hulk Hogan had a 2x4 and was named after a hand tool, you'd be a Hulk Hogan fan from the glory days of the cartoon WWF.
Yeah, I mean, because he told the kids to say their prayers too. I kind of liked that.
I think he stopped doing that when he became Hollywood Hogan, right?
Yeah, he did. Then his life sort of went sideways after that. We've got one from Viking Insane, gives us $2 Canadian. Max Bernier's English isn't good. His policies are. Yeah, exactly. Who cares? I don't care how well he speaks English.
No.
Get an interpreter and articulate your policies to me. I don't care about the other stuff. I think most people don't, except for uptight people in Quebec who want to protect their access to those government jobs, because most of the country isn't bilingual. And so that disqualifies them from government jobs and government appointments. You can be the best judge in Canada, the most fair judge in Canada. You'll never get an appointment to the Supreme Court because you've got to be bilingual.
Yeah, but in fairness, I've never had any issue at all understanding Maxime Bernier, Sheila.
Sure.
I think his English is fine. But having said that, if he was unilingual French and I had to get all of my information from Mr. Bernier via translator, I would still love Max and I would still love his policies. And that's the point I'm making. If that's the Prime Minister and I have to, like I said, of course I want him to be able to speak English. But if it was French unilingual, but it was like a guy like Max Bernier, and we all know what Max stands for, I'm happy as a clam, Sheila.
Yeah, I don't care. Like, would we rule out a deaf politician because they speak English Sign Language?
Yeah.
And not, you know what I mean? You're ruling so many good people out. I think it's crazy. We've got a super chat from Dragon Joe, gives us $5 Canadian. Do you guys know JJ McCullough? Yeah, I do, and I like him. He did a video on the 6 classes of citizens in Canada due to collectivist policies. Good stuff, well researched. You really should watch JJ's video about how he was denounced in the Quebec legislature, because I think he wrote an article or did a video. I'm sorry, the details are a little foggy now because it's over a year ago or maybe 2 years ago. But he was denounced in the Quebec legislature because he either did a video or wrote an article basically laying out the fact that there are these inequities that privilege the French language and francophones over the entire rest of the country. And so he was actually denounced in the legislature by name for, I guess, being an anti-French bigot, I suppose. Yeah, crazy. Richard Summers gives us $13.99 Canadian. The only problem with a prime minister who can only speak a language you don't understand is that you have to believe the media is truthfully telling you what they say is what they're actually saying. Well, yes and no, because we don't believe the media right now anyway. That's why I exist here. And there are so many other ways to go around the media. Donald Trump is really great at this. He takes to his own Twitter account. The White House does their own live streaming. Have your own interpreter. So there are other ways, because being your own media now is so accessible and it's cheap and it's easy and it's everywhere. You don't need to rely on the media to trust what they're saying as far as translation goes. You can just run your own translation and speak directly to the people.
Yeah, and speaking of which, I was listening to, on the way into the office, Sheila, the Justin Trudeau 11 a.m. press conference, and man, they got to get a better translator than that guy. First of all, he sounds like RoboCop, and the amount of pregnant pauses makes it almost incoherent. So I think my caveat, if we had a French-only prime minister, is make sure we get the best of the best, the creme de la creme of translators, so we can actually understand what the translation is.
That reminds me of that time, I think it was at, oh shoot, his name escapes me right now. It was at a funeral for imprisoned South African leader. It's literally on the tip of my tongue.
Nelson Mandela.
I think it was Nelson Mandela's funeral.
And it was the sign language guy?
Yeah, and he was just doing random motions. He wasn't anything. And he was literally standing on, so they didn't screen him, they didn't vet him, they didn't do anything. He basically said, like, yeah, I'm a translator. I can translate. Look at me go. And then he got up there and he was like within feet of, like, I think it was Obama at the time. Like, he was within feet of all these world leaders, and obviously a legitimate crazy person. Yeah. And yeah, and so one of the most watched events in the world that year was they had a fake translator. Just given her up there.
And Sheila,
and I think it happens in Florida.
It's worse than you think, because I read a story at the time that this was the second time this guy wormed his way into a very important official press conference in South Africa. So, and somehow he got away with it again. I mean, I can't explain that.
And I think it happened, like, a guy who was working for, like, doing translation for the police in Florida. I know this is so fun to watch because he's so, like, serious as a heart attack, right? And imagine being deaf and watching this and saying, what in God's name is going on? Like, I think he actually even had some things that meant something, but it was just gibberish.
Yes. But you know, Sheila, now that we know that he didn't know sign language and we're watching it with that knowledge in retrospect, I don't know anything about sign language except, of course, the basic vulgar things you do when you're driving in Toronto with your middle finger. But I would say the fellow who's speaking, who's giving the eulogy, I presume, I would say if someone's doing sign language, the signer must be doing way more signage than that guy was doing. It's like a minute goes by and he just does some random moves, and that incorporated like a minute worth of verbal speech. You know, that's crazy.
The guy who does the translation for Jason Kenney's press conferences looks like Lauren Gunter's twin brother. Like, Lauren, it's very crazy. The first time I I saw that press conference, I was like, my glass is dirty? Is that Lauren Gunter? Does he know sign language? Is there nothing he can't do? It wasn't Lauren Gunter, though. Because I think at one point Lauren Gunter asked a question, and then I was like, okay, Lauren Gunter is not in two places at once. That's actually somebody else.
Oh, wow.
But he does look very similar. Yeah.
There is
like
a resemblance. Jeez.
He really gets given her, too. I kind of like watching him.
Now, Sheila, speaking of Edmonton, you wanted to, I understand, talk about Paula Simons.
Oh, Paula Simons. Yes. Let me actually just breeze through a few of these super chats before I get on
I'm
my
sorry.
Paula.
I didn't know we had more. Okay.
Well, of course we do, because we have the most generous people on the face of the earth. But
We do.
we better talk about Paula Simons because, wow, that lady, she really, she's something else. She's independent. Sure, well, she's acting like a liberal. We'll get to that. Okay, we got super chat from Mitch Thibodeau. Gives us $27.99. Thank you very much, and says you are amazing. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Irene Nadeau gives us $5. No super chat, but thank you, Irene. Jack R gives us $2. No super chat. Jack R gives us another $2 and says Trudeau rejected by the UN yesterday. Yeah, I think we should talk about that if we get a second here. Dave Polson gives us $10. I don't see a super chat. Gary G gives us $5. On a lighter note, Trump rallies are back on. 1 million people signed up for the Tulsa rally in a few days. I heard that they were lined up like yesterday morning.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I mean.
And of course, CNN will go down to the rally 6 hours before it happens and go, only 24 people are here. Yeah, they're the workers setting up the stands, the extra seats that they had to bring in. And I'm not making that up. That was one of the reports I remember a CNN journalist doing, mocking how sparsely attended it was. And it was, I think it was about 3 hours before the actual rally was set to begin. And I mean, you wonder how fake news has come into the vernacular. There you go.
Yeah. Derek G gives us $5 Canadian, says we French Quebecers aren't taught proper English in school. The reason is they fear we end up assimilated. We are culturally isolated. You're telling me that educators would have an agenda? No, never.
But this is the thing, though, Sheila. Let me tell you something. Learning a second language as a young person is incredibly easier than an adult trying to do that. I mean, my son, my older son, we put him into French immersion, and I thought it was the biggest scam going because I would say, come on, give me a few syllables in French, and he never would. And I thought, he's not learning anything. And then we took a family trip to Quebec City, and we were in a bookstore, and I was looking for French language kids books, which, as you can imagine, would be far more prevalent in Quebec City than Toronto. And when the clerk heard that he could speak French, they engaged in a conversation at 100 miles an hour in French. I was blown away. I'd never heard the kid speak French, and he was fluent. So, 100%, kids in Quebec should be learning English in school. And, if you have the opportunity, and I fully endorse it, to go to a French immersion school, that's the only way to learn. Because when I tried to learn French in junior high school and high school, it was already too late, Sheila. And, you really have to immerse yourself at a young age.
My daughters are learning Ukrainian simply because it's kind of the language of business in northeastern Alberta. It really is. And the older one wants to get a job at the Ukrainian village. It's like a little cultural center that's like one of those living museums where you dress in costumes, and that's like it's probably the first employer for many kids around here. But she wants to learn enough so that she can make money as an interpreter there. So also, I want her to eavesdrop on the farmers at the auction sales for me. It's good to have a mole. Like that Seinfeld where Elaine brought what's-his-face's dad to eavesdrop on the nail ladies who were speaking in Korean because she knew they were talking about George's dad. That's who it was. Okay, we should get back to that question on Paula Simons.
Yes.
She's refusing to work. She's the Liberal senator. She says she's independent, but Justin Trudeau appointed her. Former journalist. She's refusing to work now. She makes $157,000 per year, almost $158,000 per year, plus all the senatorial perks. But she says she's not returning to work. She's not getting paid, though. She's just not returning to work until lawmakers wear masks. And she sent this pretentious "Dear Friends" note to her fellow senators saying that she was horrified legislators showed up for work maskless. Blacklock's has the quote of what she said. "I'm both confused and horrified by the lack of masks in the chamber. It is my firm belief all senators and officials in the chamber should be wearing masks, both to protect one another and to model appropriate health protocols for Canadians. Much though I would like to be in the chamber next week, I simply don't feel safe if they are not taking the most basic health precautions. Is there no way we can take moral and medical leadership and insist on the wearing of masks in the Senate?"
You know, Sheila, it's a good thing Canada is not currently at war and Paula Simons is a draftable candidate. Could you imagine somebody like that on the front? She won't even go in, to a cushy office position because of a lack of a mask, when we know she has a 6 times higher chance of dying by crossing the street go into the Senate than she does of the Wuhan virus. Give me a break.
She's more likely to be groped by Justin Trudeau by virtue of being at work than she is to catch the coronavirus. Give me a break, lady. By the way, which version of Theresa Tam's medical advice are we relying on now? The masks are good or masks are bad? Which one is it? Because maybe your senatorial colleagues are just confused about what they need to do because they've been listening to Theresa Tam.
Wow.
Who knows?
Incredible. Now, Mr. Producer, I thought was calling me Superman for my analysis.
No,
turns
never.
out I misheard it. It was Super Chats, which means you have to read some more emails, Sheila.
Yes. We have Krusty Canuck gives us $20 Canadian. Love what you guys do. We need more independent media commentary more than ever now. Thank you very much. Dave Paulson gives us another $2. John T. Singus gives us $2. Says CBC kids smeared J.K. Rowling with our tax money. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we have a story up on the website about that. Patricia Mashi. Okay. You know what? The super chat is her telling me how to say it. Thank you, Patricia. $5 Canadian. Sheila, it's pronounced Mashi. Lol, hail Rebel News. Thank you very much. And thank you for allowing me to finally correct myself after all these weeks. Dave Polson tried to ask this, but it didn't attach to the super chat. Okay, thank you, Justin. Let people know there is a character limit depending on how much you pay. Yes, there is a character limit depending on how much you pay, so you might have to increase that. But this is what Dave tried to ask, and I apologize that he had so much difficulty. Rebel News, do a show on facts on police shooting deaths in Canada. For example, armed and unarmed, how many interactions they have. You know, that would be interesting to dive down into those statistics. Krusty Canuck, $20 Canadian. I don't see a super chat, and I think we are finally all caught up. Should we take the last 2 minutes, David? 2 minutes of the show to talk about Trudeau being rejected by the UN?
Absolutely. We would be so remiss. I mean, Sheila, here's what I'm trying to think about in my head in terms of Justin Trudeau's reaction, because he spent so much time on this. He spent so much money. He did so much virtue signaling. And then to get jilted that way, I'm wondering, behind closed doors at the cottage, did he go, oh, well, you know what? That's the way the cookie crumbles, or did he just kick the trash can over? Because I got to admit, Sheila, I thought he did enough kowtowing to China. I thought he did enough kowtowing to the Islamic bloc. I really thought he was going to get it. I was surprised. What are your thoughts?
I don't know. I'm happy, definitely happy he didn't get it.
Me too.
Displeased that he wasted so much of our money and our, I think, moral and ethical capital on this venture. He definitely did. suck up to China. I think that the fact that the two Michaels are still languishing in a Chinese prison is a testament to how much he wanted that UN security seat. But for all of his selling out of Canadian principles, all of his cozying up to dictators, selling out of Israel, he still got fewer votes than Stephen Harper. Stephen Harper actually forced a second round of voting. Justin Trudeau never made it to the second round.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. And so now the liberals and liberal apologists in the mainstream media, which are just so many, they're actively going back and deleting old tweets that they made about when Stephen Harper lost the Security Council vote. Like Joyce Murray, she says, Canada loses out on Security Council seat. Unprecedented, unsurprising. Harper's obsession, partisanship over leadership has cost him. You know, it's they're deleting those tweets so fast. It's so great. Like even I dug up a Facebook post from Justin Trudeau who said something similar, that it was of course, I can't get my Twitter account to open, but it was something similar, blaming it on the leadership of Stephen Harper and how it was a failure of Stephen Harper that just sort of has to hang around Stephen Harper's neck forever. None of those people have very much to say right now. They all are just pretending like the vote didn't happen yesterday. It's like, oh, we lost.
Amazing. But I really wonder, honestly, Sheila, like I said, I thought it was going to happen, and I just wonder what went wrong, because he did all the cuddling up to all the odious types there to curry favor, and it never materialized. I don't know what went wrong.
David, are you telling me that the world's human rights violators and the world's despots and dictators would take our money and shaft us in return? Well, David, that's where would you get that idea?
Yeah.
That literally the worst people on the planet would screw us over in the end.
What am I saying? I mean,
think about it.
You know, it's like that great line in Superman 2 where terrorists have taken over the Empire State Building, and they've got a nuclear device, and they're threatening to blow Paris up. And Perry White at the Daily Planet is conveying this information to Clark Kent, and Kent says, Perry, that's terrible. And he says, yeah, Kent, that's why they're called terrorists.
Exactly.
Before, I think we have a super chat. And by the way, before I forget, folks, at 6:30, we will have a live stream pertaining to the Conservative debate. So please be here for that. Ezra will be in this chair for that live stream. So that's 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. What are those super chats there, Sheila?
Yeah, I think I might be on that live stream or not, but I might be eating dinner from the news desk here. So if you see me, like when Ezra ate that burger, and then when Alex Jones ate the burger interviewing Ezra that one time, you might see me just like shoveling a steak into my mouth on air. But I eat when I eat. We've got a super chat from Derek G. Gives us $10 Canadian. You guys should make a documentary or anything like that on the subject of bilingualism. It would be good if you could take each side French-English concerns on the matter. Some of that was covered in a really great documentary about the separatist movements across the country. It was called Disunited States of Canada, and a surprisingly good National Film Board documentary, by the way, for once. And it was about, and it dealt with separatist movements in Alberta and in BC and in Quebec, and they touch on the language issue. And it's funny because the documentary is made by like French separatists kind of thing, and even they came to the conclusion at the end that the election of Stephen Harper extinguished all the separatist movements across the country. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I'm going on, and we're way past time. Richard Summers, $6.99 Canadian. Canada fell to 12th from 9th on the Worldwide Corruption Index. Yeah, that happened a few months ago. It's sort of back in the news now because Blacklock's is talking about it, but we did do a written story on that at the time. again, cozying up to dictators will have that effect on your worldwide reputation. Jack R. gives us $2 Canadian. The UN are onto Trudeau. They don't want him either. No, I think they want him just fine because he'll do whatever they say. They just don't want to give him any power, which makes them probably smarter than us. Oh, there's one more super chat. They're still rolling in. The Great Awakening, $2 Canadian. I guess the UN didn't want to give a black man a seat. But
Oh, what a way to end the show. Well,
Yeah,
folks,
that's great.
as Sheila alluded to, we are over time here. I want to remind everybody again, tell your family, tell your friends at 6:30, you'll see live stream coverage of the Conservative leadership debate, this time in English, hopefully. And on the behalf of Sheila Gunn-Reid and myself, David Menzies, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to all those who contributed via a super chat. We'll see you back here again on Tuesday. In the meantime, stay safe. Thank you. Good afternoon.